ostrich, whole bunch of stuff.
Yep, we got to witness an ostrich mating dance. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it was steamy.
Oh my gosh, it was hysterical. And the female ostriches couldn't care less. They actually ran away from him. Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Kat.
I'm Chris.
And this is episode number 184.
You know what my favorite thing about traveling in the beginning of September is?
What?
The fact that you come back and it is fall.
That's true.
Pumpkin everything. Cinnamon everything.
I'm a little disappointed that when you went grocery shopping yesterday, you didn't bring home pumpkin spice coffee creamer.
You still have coffee creamer in the fridge.
Yeah, but it's not pumpkin spice.
It's cookie butter.
Okay, well, it's not pumpkin spice.
Fair. It's on the grocery list for next week.
Is it?
Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
that's sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. But no, it's awesome because there's a little nip in the air. I love fall.
I had a
have
great
said this
run today.
so many times on this podcast. I love fall. It is the best season.
I like running in the fall because it's cool in the mornings and you're not overly heated. Like in the summertime, it's so freaking hot and you're just sweating the second you get out the door. And
I don't know if all of us have this problem.
I feel like I'm just a sweatier person.
That is, yeah.
So the second I start
true.
my run, I'm like, well, I'm sweating. But it's less so in the fall, which is great.
Yeah. Is fall your favorite season? No, rosé is my favorite season.
Oh my gosh. I do love summer a lot of the time just because I like the opportunity to go to the beach and
sweat
and swim and sweat. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate fall because I know as a kid I loved summer. Always my favorite.
Summer is a trash season.
No, well, it was I was off work. I had a lot of free time I could do, or not off work. I was out of school. I would read a lot in the summer. We had a pool at home. So we'd go swimming a lot. We'd go to the beach. So I always loved summer.
What a country club lifestyle.
Okay.
We had a pool at home.
Well, an above ground. But it was still great. I mean, we had a blast in that pool growing up, all of us kids. But I really enjoyed that. And then even as an adult, I always really liked summer because especially when I worked in the corporate world, summertime was pretty dead for the most part. People would all be taking vacations in random intervals and people just aren't super motivated to do a lot of things in the summer. So the big projects would get pushed off until later in the year. And I used to work at an accounting firm where for the most part, especially when I was in Cincinnati, our busy season was in the wintertime. So in the summertime, so many people would take off work. They would just take their extended vacations because we had all this free time. The days were the work days were shorter. So I always liked that too. But I don't know. There's just so much going on in the summer. There's always lots of fun little food festivals and little things happening in towns.
Hold on. What
races?
Hold on. What food festivals do you go to in the summer?
I don't know. There's always little festivals.
What food festival did you go to this past summer?
I didn't go to one this past summer, which is a shame, Christopher.
Unreal. I think we can both
I was
agree,
traveling for a part of it. Then you gave me COVID for part of it.
Allegedly.
And then we were traveling again.
I think we can both agree that summer is a rough season to travel in.
At least this year, 100%, it was a rough season. I mean, yeah.
Everything's
our
just
trip
more
to
crowded.
Italy was just crazy. Just getting there and back with all the staffing issues and things like that. Just nuts. The summer travel. I'm glad we did it. Luckily, we went to places in Italy that were not as crazy crowded, except for Rome.
Let me ask you this. You said, the older that you get, the more that you are appreciating fall.
Yes.
The more you're appreciating winter as well?
Not Cleveland winters necessarily, because when there's multiple feet / a meter of snow on the ground.
A meter?
Outside. Yes. Do you know how many times we've been oh, great. There's a crap ton of snow out there. People have snowshoes sometimes to get around. You can't walk around on the sidewalks outside. sometimes in winter here.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a layer of permafrost all winter long.
I love winter too.
So yeah, like I've begun to appreciate fall more as I've gotten older, just because it's more of the off-season travel. So it's a lot more fun to travel during that time because a lot of people aren't traveling. We even made the case for why November is a fantastic travel month. Like last year we did that. Yeah, and as a runner, it's much more fun to run outside in the morning. Like, I don't have to get up at super, super early in the morning before the sun comes up to get my run in so that I'm not sweating like crazy. In the fall, you can you can sleep in on Saturday, then go for your run and stuff like that because it's not going to be super hot. And the fall foliage is pretty.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that was a wonderful romp through the seasons.
Yes. If you can't tell, we came back and it's fall. That's because we just got back from our trip to Uganda and Kenya, where we spent 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yes.
What was your highlight since we last recorded?
Oh, man. Well, our whole trip was pretty great. But I will say the hot air balloon over the Maasai Mara at sunrise was probably my highlight, which we will definitely talk about a little bit in this episode and more in future episodes.
I am going to just say that the trip overall was my highlight.
That's cheating.
No, it's not.
No, what is your highlight?
I will rank...
No, that's cheating. What is it?
What is my highlight?
Yeah, your main highlight, not just the trip. You never let me just do something that general.
I have not fully reflected upon
Oh, stop it. What was your
trip.
favorite?
Landing here at home.
No, it was not.
There we go. I picked
No,
something
your
specific.
favorite was yet another jaunt in London Heathrow Airport.
I do love London Heathrow.
Okay, I feel like, so we have a travel wall in our living room, and it has all of these wonderful destinations that we have been to, photos of them. And I was just like, there have been so many times that we have flown through London Heathrow Airport, and we've spent so much time in that airport, but Christopher has never actually seen London, which we're gonna do eventually. But I was like, we just needed a photo of us at London Heathrow because we fly through it so many times.
Yeah.
At least like a couple of times a year we're in London Heathrow, I feel like, just on the way doing something.
Great airport.
Yeah.
But yeah, my highlight was the trip overall. I will drop a more specific experience at a later date.
Oh, stop it.
TBD.
Oh my gosh.
But you mentioned that we did just get home from Uganda and Kenya. Today's episode, we are going to kind of touch upon some of the experiences that we had there. So an African safari is a bucket list trip for many people, and for good reason. Mm-hmm. But with so many countries and so many areas within those countries to choose from, how do you decide where to go? Well, today we are going to discuss 3 pretty popular safari destinations to give you an overview of the pros and cons of each, to help you decide which of at least these 3 could make it onto your safari list.
Yeah, and a caveat, these are the 3 destinations we've been to. So Tanzania's not going to be on here. I'd love to go one day. Heard
Namibia.
Amazing things. Namibia, Botswana.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah, like just lots of great places out there for safari, which we have a whole episode about how much does a safari cost, and we even talked about all the different places you could go on safari.
Yeah.
But in our experience, our personal experience traveling to Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa, this is what this episode is based on. The differences between going on safari in those 3 places.
Yes. So let's go ahead and start off with Uganda. And more specifically, Queen Elizabeth National Park in Uganda.
Yes.
First reaction, one of the coolest national park signs I've ever seen. It's a big hippo.
The big hippo.
Yes.
With Queen Elizabeth National Park written right on it.
Great, great sign. Queen Elizabeth National Park is known for tree climbing lions, which are rare. Right? You're not going to see these everywhere. Lions don't climb trees everywhere. Queen Elizabeth National Park has this specific species of fig tree.
Yeah, it's a gigantic fig tree.
Yes, where the branches are wide enough and the figs are aromatic enough, and, just climb up there and smell some figs.
No, it's not the smell. It's Well, even our guide Milton talked to us about this, and he said that 1, it's a great vantage point. They can get up there. 2, lots of great shade in the fig tree. 3, it holds their weight so they can get up there. And 4,
smells like figs.
no, probably smells good. But 4, the tsetse flies are, can be quite painful and annoying. So they're in the grass. So if they're up in the tree, they are less likely to get bitten. So that's kind of where they like to hang out in, especially during the heat of the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they are known for are boat cruises on the Kazinga Channel.
Yes.
This is one of the largest concentration of hippos. So if you are a hippo lover, if you want a hippopotamus for Christmas, this is where to go.
I feel like that song was stuck in my head for a good chunk of this trip whenever we saw hippos.
Yeah.
I would nickname them the hips and the hips all the time.
And I loved it.
Okay.
So that's what Queen Elizabeth National Park is known for. Let's talk about some drawbacks before we get to some pros here. So drawbacks of Queen Elizabeth National Park: limited lodging within the park. Uganda is just not as popular of a tourist destination as some of the other like big players in the safari sphere, like Kenya, for instance. So they don't have the infrastructure that some of the other countries have. And as a result, they have limited lodging within the park, and including only one in the Ishasha sector, which is where we stayed. Which
is the southern part of the park where the tree climbing lions are known. There's a few more in the northern parts of the park, and there are some places to stay outside the park.
Right.
But if you want to stay inside the park, there's only one option, and that is the Shasha Wilderness Camp.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah, if you want to stay in Ishasha. Yeah, and I think Uganda overall kind of has I think their tourism is still developing. Yes. I think that's an industry that they're trying to get into a lot. And I think the gorillas are popular. The chimps are popular. Those treks. So Queen Elizabeth National Park, I feel like, is just kind of under the radar. And I feel like it's a great segue between going to see the gorillas and the chimps is Queen Elizabeth National Park, which is right in the middle of it all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some other drawbacks of Queen Elizabeth National Park: you are not going to be able to see the big 5. Mm-hmm. They do not have rhino. Yeah. They have the other 4, which, if you are not familiar, elephant, Cape buffalo, lion, and leopard.
Leopards are very, very rare to see in most places, but especially here. They're very rare to see.
We did not see them.
Yeah.
But yeah, zero possibility of seeing a rhino here. Also, not part of the big 5, but a giraffe is a pretty popular animal that one kind of wants to see on safari. I know that we're planning a safari with your parents, and your mom really wants to see a giraffe. That's like one of her top animals. Not going to happen here.
Yeah, they do not exist in this part of the park, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no giraffes. There's also no off-roading, so you have to stay on the roads. And that can be both a good and a bad thing. You can't get super close to the animals, but also it's good probably to stay off the grass and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. But that being said, it has some significant pros too. Mm-hmm. One of them being that you're going to have fewer people here. It's just not as popular of a destination for safari. We went on 5 different game drives.
I think so, yeah.
And we only saw one other vehicle once.
Yeah,
it was always
sparse.
Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Another huge pro is the tree climbing lions. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a really neat visual, just because you're not going to see it pretty much anywhere else. And then another pro is that even though it is even though it's a less popular park, there's a lot of wildlife there. Like, we were constantly seeing, whether it be topi or warthog or Cape buffalo or elephant, or like anywhere that we turned, we would be seeing something.
We even saw a python.
We did.
At one point randomly.
That was awesome.
I mean, we were in the car, which was great, and it was like kind of right in front of a ditch along the road, and it was massive. And the second we kind of made any sort of movement, it was gone. It was like, nope, and left. yeah, that's just nuts to see.
Yeah. But a lot of different sightings, both birds and mammals.
Yes. A lot of great bird life.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that being said, what would you say Queen Elizabeth National Park is best for? What type of person?
I think if you really want to see the tree climbing lions, if lions are your thing, great for that. It's very rare to see tree climbing lions anywhere else in the wild, and we saw them twice while we were there, which was cool. Also, I would mostly recommend it if you're combining like going to Kabale National Park for the chimpanzee trekking and the primates, and Bwindi Impenetrable National Park for the gorillas. I wouldn't necessarily go out of your way to go here just because you're not going to see the big five, you're not going to see giraffes, and the tourism's like slightly underdeveloped there, but that's fine. I will also point out that if you're going to go, it is an affordable place, but you do have to provide your own driver.
Yes.
You can't just show up in the lodge like where we stayed in South Africa had their own drivers and stuff that you would just hop in the car and do a game drive. You have to provide that, which is great. So if you go through a company, they will arrange all that for you like we did. But yeah, so that's kind of another drawback, is it might be cheaper on paper when you book the lodge, but you also have to bring more stuff. Like
Yes.
You have to bring your guide.
BYOD.
Yeah, you have to bring your own guide and driver, and that adds up quickly.
Yeah, but I think that you hit the nail on the head there, is that I wouldn't necessarily go into Uganda just to go to Queen Elizabeth National Park.
Yeah.
If I were already there, I would go, but I wouldn't necessarily go just because, unless you're a lion lover.
And great hippo watching, too.
Yeah.
Like, you can always do the Kazinga Channel, which is an incredible channel to go and explore in the northern part of the park and see a lot of the hippos.
Sure.
We also saw hippos out of water for the first time.
We did, which was
Yeah.
amazing.
Which was really cool.
All right. The next one we're going to chat about is the Maasai Mara in Kenya.
In Kenya.
So the Mara is known for the Great Migration.
Mm-hmm.
It is also known for an incredibly high concentration of wildlife. This is a savanna landscape, so it's pretty flat. It's one of those like far as the eye can see, and if you look out to the horizon, there's a good chance that you can see 2 or 3 different types of animals as your eyes are making it out there.
Yes, with mountains in the background, especially as you head towards Tanzania, because the Maasai Mara combines with the Serengeti. I mean, you basically hit the end of the border, and then you have the Serengeti, because it's all
River.
one. Yeah, you kind of hit that whole area, and that's the 2 parks. I mean, one is in Tanzania, the Serengeti, the Maasai Mara is in Kenya, but they are attached. Is one kind of landscape that animals just go back and forth between. Hence the Great Migration as the wildebeest are crossing the Mara River. I also want to point out too that the Maasai Mara, something I learned about is that they have the National Reserve and the Conservancy. And the Conservancy area is privately owned, so you can do the off-roading and things like that, versus the National Reserve is more, you have to stick to the roads, but you're also closer to the action like the Mara River and to see the wildebeest crossing and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some drawbacks of the Mara. It's crowded.
Yeah.
This is a popular destination. Think like New York City or Rome or what have you from like a city perspective, right? Like it's a popular destination for good reason, but there's going to be a lot of people. Because there's a lot of demand, it's also going to be more expensive.
Yes, this was definitely our most expensive safari stay out of the 3 destinations that we've been to. But it does include your driver, which is great. Typically a lot of these lodges will include your driver, food, things like that. Where we stayed didn't include like alcohol, but again, those are all kind of like additional purchases.
Yeah.
I will point out that it's also very large, so you kind of need a lot of time to see it. And I was very, very nervous about the fact that a lot of people mentioned about the Maasai Mara that it would be like 20 different vehicles surrounding a lion. And that definitely happened. And they kind of say that as a bad thing about the Maasai Mara. And while I will admit that definitely happened, there were also times where we were all alone with wildlife, including lions and leopards and things like that. I think the biggest thing to note there is to be patient. And a lot of these cars will drive away after a while. People only want to stay there for a limited time. They want to take their pictures and go. If you're willing to be patient and just sit it out for a bit, you could be there by yourself and you could see some really cool things. Like we spent an hour and a half watching this leopard with a mongoose kill, and like most people just saw it eating the mongoose on the ground and then they left, and our guide was like, no, let's keep watching. Like it's rare to see a leopard, so let's just see what's going to happen. And then when we saw it chase off jackals and then take the kill into the tree and then fend off a lion that was going to try to get her kill, and it was a whole thing. It was an action-packed hour-and-a-half game drive.
It was awesome. It really was.
It was just incredible. And I think having that patience, we'd never would have seen that, versus this 20 vehicles that came to see this leopard had all pretty much left. I think there was one other car that stuck around and saw all of this.
Yeah, you're right. But I do want to touch on something else you said, one of the drawbacks being the size. I mean, it's massive, right? Yeah. So it is, it's nice because there's a lot of land to cover. Mm-hmm. You can see a lot of different areas. It's also a drawback because it's so big that like people aren't going to be able to like survey or go find animals in all areas of the park, right? So it's a larger area for animals to be. So depending upon the type of sighting that you want, you may not be able to like achieve that. Like for instance, we did not see rhino. Mm-hmm. And we drove all over. We were trying to contact other guides, all of that kind of stuff, and just I mean, they were dodging us. So large park, lots of areas for them to be. Yeah.
I would also say, as a part of it being a large park, if you're staying in the Conservancy, which is where we stayed, it can be like a several hour or half-day game drive just to see the Mara River and spend time there and also see other wildlife. So it's neat because you're not just doing the standard 3-hour game drives. You can book like all day or half-day game drives, but just be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a lot of pros to the Maasai Mara. Like I said, this is popular for a reason, right? Yeah. One of the biggest pros is that the big five are present, but not only the big five, but cheetah and giraffe and zebra and a whole bunch of other popular animals that one wants to see. Ostrich, whole bunch of stuff.
Yep, we got to witness an ostrich mating dance. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it was steamy.
Oh my gosh, it was hysterical. And the female ostriches couldn't care less. They actually ran away from him.
Yes. But yeah, you have the big five plus many, many, many more types of animals. Mm-hmm. Another really neat pro of the Mara is that there are various types of safaris. You mentioned at the top of the episode that we took a hot air balloon safari. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Incredible. I mean, it really, really was.
We saw so much from the air and got so close and flew right over a herd of zebra. It was just insane.
Yeah. They also have horseback safari. We did not do that. I didn't want to break out like John Dutton in the middle of the Mara with my...
You were tempted.
With my safari hat, but that was another option. And then in the Conservancy, there are hiking or walking safaris, and there's also off-roading options. Mm-hmm. So lots of pros there.
And then, of course, there's the Great Migration. That's certainly the big draw to the Mara, as well as Serengeti, is to see the Great Migration of the wildebeest. But yeah, a lot of action. I mean, it is such a great place to go for a safari.
Agreed.
Yeah. You also have your like pick of options as far as lodging goes. So what we did was a mid-range budget, was more expensive for us, but you can certainly find more budget-friendly places too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that the Mara is best for those that are thinking of the quintessential African safari or the classic African safari. Like if I say we're going on safari, the image that pops into your head is the Mara. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you have the savannah, you have all of the animals. It's just what you're looking for, what the pictures are that you've seen, what the video is that you've seen. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So, yeah, that is Kenya's Mara.
Yeah. Oh, another big pro I did want to point out too was the fact that like Kenya is very developed in tourism. I mean, people go to the Mara. I mean, like people know about the Maasai Mara, so they're very well versed in that. So you could just tell that like the tourism's pretty booming there. And also there's also the opportunity to do the Maasai visits, the Maasai community visits. And the Maasai people are typically working at the camp. We had Maasai people that would guard the tents at night, as well as our driver, Joseph, is a Maasai person. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Our last destination is actually the first place we ever went on safari, and that is South Africa, specifically the Kruger National Park area / where we stayed, which was a private reserve called the Timbavati. And that is known for the Big Five. Especially Timbavati was known for leopard sightings, which we definitely saw, and African wild dogs, also known for that in the area. As far as drawbacks go, it is pretty hilly compared to the African savanna that is both Queen Elizabeth National Park and the Maasai Mara. So it's a little bit more hilly, a little less visibility. So it's not necessarily that quintessential safari look that you picture, but still has all the wildlife on offer. I'll also say that the concentration of animals aren't quite as crazy, but you can still certainly find the Big Five and all of the other animals. And you'll definitely see lots of warthogs and antelope and stuff, but you kind of have to search a little bit more or use the trackers, because you most of the time get a tracker if you stay in somewhere like the Timbavati to find the animals that you're looking for. As far as pros, great value. You can stay in some really luxurious lodges for a lot less money than you would think. Now, there are very, very expensive lodges in Kruger and things like that too, but you can get some pretty good value for less in Kruger and the Timbavati area. Kruger National Park specifically allows self-driving, so there's lots of people doing self-drive safaris there, and you just stay at a lodge. The Timbavati allows off-roading versus the Kruger National Park, because it is a national park, does not. But yeah, I think the Big Five is a huge draw to this area, is that you'll be able to usually spot that. Well,
very much so.
Especially if you go to more like the Timbavati was really great, because we managed to find a couple rhinos there and leopard.
Yeah.
Oh, I will also say that South Africa, again, very developed in tourism. So
yes,
people come to South Africa for safari, but they also come to Cape Town and Johannesburg and do the, all the things. And there's so many great places to see and check out in South Africa that people will go do. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that that's like the type of person that this is probably best for, right? Maybe you don't want to do safari the entire time. I mean, maybe you want to do shark cage diving or hike Table Mountain, or you want to go to the winelands or something like that. Like if you want to have safari be a component of your trip, but not the entirety of your trip, I would say that this is a great option for that type of person, as well as the type of person who wants to have the chance to see the Big Five, but maybe get a little bit more value, maybe stretch that dollar a little bit further than it would be in Kenya or Tanzania or some of the heavy hitters in the safari realm.
Yeah, and I would definitely say, like you're right. I mean, because tourism is so like developed in South Africa, because a lot of people visit various places in that country, it's pretty easy to get a morning flight to Kruger and you're going on an evening game drive, or you go on a morning game drive and then you fly out to Cape Town or something. So it's a lot easier to get to and not take an entire day, which is very helpful to get to a place. So, yep, great for a budget. Great if you also want to go explore the charms of the rest of South Africa as well. That is what it's best for.
There it is.
Yeah.
All of that being said, which was your favorite of the three and why?
This is tough, but I will say I think the Maasai Mara was my favorite. And I say that because it is kind of that quintessential safari. You do see a lot of wildlife, but I think the fact that you can do a hot air balloon safari and things like that was just such a magical experience. And I'm really thankful we got to do that.
If you were grounded, no hot air balloon safari, which would have been your favorite?
I don't know. I would say probably the Maasai Mara still, just because the concentration of even the big cats there too. I mean, we saw a lot. We saw a genet cat and serval and civet and like leopard,
cheetah,
lion, just all the big cats. And I'm a cat person through and through. Big cats, little cats. So I was very happy. I mean, the Queen Elizabeth part of the trip was literally to go see tree climbing lions for me. And then the Maasai Mara was so that I could see a cheetah. So check. And so I think that was really cool to see all of that. And there was a lot of action that went down there too, because of the concentration of animals. Like we saw a lot.
Yeah.
What about you?
My favorite, and this is purely based upon what we saw in each, right? It's not like an overly expansive kind of thought on it, but my favorite was the Mara because of the sighting of the leopard with the mongoose, with the jackals trying to steal it, and the lion trying to steal it, and the lion then going after the elephants, and the elephants like not allowing that to happen, and the lion going back to the, like, it was just such an action-packed game drive. I could have sat there and watched it all day. So that was my favorite wildlife sighting that we've had on safari. And consequently, that's going to be my favorite safari because of that. What about if someone says, hey, I am thinking about going on an African safari? I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be like a multi-safari person. I just like, I want to go on an African safari. I want to check that off, and then I want to do other things. Where would you point them of these three destinations?
I think I would say South Africa.
Okay.
Because the Maasai Mara is definitely up there too, but I'd say South Africa, especially if you want to see the Big Five, because we saw the Big Five many times over during our time, and not to say that that's how it is all the time. I mean, it's wildlife. You can't really predict what animals are going to do and where they're going to be at any given time, but big chances of seeing them, especially as it is known more for leopard in certain parts of the park and things like that. So I think if you want to go on a safari and you really want to see like certain animals, I'd say South Africa really kind of offers that. It offers all the big animals, and it might not be as heavily concentrated, but you're going to be able to see a lot of the Big Five while you're there, which is great, if not all of them. And it's also it's an easy place to get into and out of, as well as explore other parts of South Africa. I think that's a great place for both like first timers as well as if that's all you're going to do. And again, it's got very developed tourism, so it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, the Maasai Mara is also very classic, and if you want that quintessential safari, that's definitely one to go for. What about you?
I'm going to stick with the Mara. I think that if you're going to have one safari, I think that something that this offers that Kruger did not was the visibility, like the vast expanse of land, where it was not uncommon for us to look out and see warthog and then zebra in the distance and then giraffe further in the distance or something like that, right? I just feel as though that is more of what you're thinking when you think of a safari. You're thinking of the open savanna, you're thinking of the rain, like, yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, that is sticking out to me, is that I would say that is slightly tipping the scales in favor. That being said, I know that rhino and leopard are not nearly as common there as they are in South Africa. So if those are the two animals that you really want to see, I think that would tip the needle more towards South Africa for me.
So that's Kenya, South Africa, and Uganda.
If you are going on another safari, what is the next country you want to go to?
Tanzania.
For Ngorongoro
Crater.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I feel like Tanzania is a place you could easily spend a couple of weeks and visit, like Lake Manyara and Ngorongoro Crater and the Serengeti and Zanzibar, like go to the islands and have some beach time.
Moral of the story here is when we went on safari in South Africa, we met this lovely German woman who told us that that Africa is the best drug, because once you get a hit of Africa, you're going to want to go back. It's just, there's something that draws you back. Mm-hmm. And it would be really hard to make only one visit to that continent.
Yeah.
It really would, especially if time and all of that kind of stuff allows for more.
Yeah. And I will say, I think for the time being, like, especially since we're going to Zimbabwe and South Africa next year, I would say North Africa is more where I'm like hoping to visit next in Africa versus like safari and stuff.
Fair enough.
Just because I want to see more of Africa. There's lots of things, and it would be nice to go north of the Sahara and into the Sahara versus sub-Saharan Africa.
There you go.
But that's all we've got. This is the difference between going on safari in Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa. But let us know your thoughts. Have you guys been on safari? What are your favorite places to go on safari? Where would you like to go on safari? You can always let us know on Twitter at WW Honeymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.